Yeah, Coach Kia. What up? Talking about that good money. What we talking about? We talking about philanthropy. Coach Kia Croom playing A, B, and a C. It's no fantasy, she can make it reality. Best in the field like a first string athlete. Fundraising and marketing, she get tactical. Tackle your issues with a playbook so your cash can grow. She can show you just what to do. Coach Kia Croom, when she touch down, it's a W. Coach Kia, put me in the game. Coach Kia, put me in the game. Coach Kia, put me in the game. Coach, you an all-star, show me how the game go.
Hello out there. Welcome to another exciting and fun installment of Winning Wednesdays, the Fundraising and Marketing Playbook. I'm delighted to be on your screens, on your phones, this fine, looks like we're transitioning and getting ready to transition into fall here. I'm still feeling the summer vibes though, y'all. I ain't gonna lie. But excited to be with you. Another segment of Winning Wednesdays where we share tactical fundraising and marketing plays to help fundraisers win big. Why? Because our motto is just win, baby. In the words of the great Al Davis, just win, baby. The Fundraising and Marketing Playbook is brought to you by Bonterra, a social goods software company dedicated to powering those who power social impact with best-in-class case management, corporate social responsibility, and fundraising engagement solutions. And that's not all. It's also brought to you by Kia Croom Fundraising and Philanthropy, a Black woman-owned fundraising firm rooted in equity and inclusion. Why? Because inclusion is as inclusion does. It's my pleasure to bring you what I consider to be some piping hot tea. Okay? It's piping hot tea. It's I want to say hot off the presses. It's, been a few weeks now. I consider that to be hot off the presses since this report that we will be discussing, the results were published. And it's my pleasure to present Ben Miller, my colleague, one of my Bonterra colleagues, and the chair of the Fundraising Effectiveness Project. Well, how are you today?
Hi, Kia. Great. And thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. We wouldn't have it any other way, Ben. I got an important question for you, Ben.
Let's have it.
Ben, you're on the mic. What's the play?
The play is using data to move down the fundraising football field.
All right. So we're going to be using data to move down the field and unpacking the latest report from the Fundraising Effectiveness Project. And it was only right to bring Ben on, as he is the chair, one of the masterminds behind that research. So Ben, talk to us, for those that may not follow this body of research. What is it?
Thank you, Kia. And I think we have a little bit of a spotty internet connection, so I'm trying to make sure that my timing is not too off. But the Fundraising Effectiveness Project is a group of data providers that have come together and provided anonymous data and it started in 2006 with the AFP and the Urban Institute. They came together, and it was an all volunteer-led effort. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Bill Levis, who sort of was the mastermind behind pulling this all together, who just recently passed this year, was involved with Form 990 data. But we are on his shoulders now with the Fundraising Effectiveness Project's work to date. And there are 5 data providers that provide anonymous data to help nonprofits understand their metrics and compare to the sector at large.
No, this is great. So, somewhat of like a benchmarking initiative, if you will.
Absolutely. And I always say that it's one thing to measure yourself against others, but you also should always measure yourself against yourself. Like, how are you doing compared to what you were doing last year? Are you improving? Are you making improvements? That it's not, you got to look inward and outward.
Hello, inward and outward. Yes, full agreement. So, because we don't have a whole bunch of time to spend together, I want to dive right in and ask you, Ben, with the 2023 findings, was there anything that particularly struck you or was jarring? Like, what was that like, wow, data point? Like, wow.
Well, the results are kind of like wow results because they're very
Okay.
negative. They're very,
Ooh.
but and we talked a little bit about this. I think it's important that to say the sky's not falling. Like, we
Right.
had a bump. We had a big bump in during COVID, during the injustices that were happening, the social justice reformation that was happening in 2020 and 2021, and we saw people become very, very generous. And so I'd like to say that what we're seeing more is a regression to the mean.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, it's jarring to see almost every metric in the red.
Dog, not in the red. Well, let's unpack some of this. Look, not in the red. But no, I think that it's excellent that you level set and say that the sky is not falling. I also think that it doesn't hurt to have that kind of, level set to suggest or to drive home the importance of having a diversified fundraising strategy, right, to kind of weather what could be a storm. But what could be a storm for some organizations could be an oasis for some others, right? I mean, I think that it just kind of depends, right? But one of the data points that I thought was particularly interesting was this whole idea that, and I'm just going to read from your website here. It says, while large donors drove marginal growth in giving dollars throughout 2021 and 2022, their stability has begun to erode. The research goes on to say that there was a decrease in donors and dollars given across all donor types in Q1. Why?
Yeah, so that is the alarming thing, and I think you've hit on a couple different topics here. One of which has been happening for more than a decade, which is we're getting more from less, and
Yes.
that is not a good sustainable strategy. And so we are starting to see some of that erode, right? So some of the wealthy, top 1% of people that are actually have been holding the sector up are starting to not be able to continue at that level. And so that to the point about diversification of revenue, I think it's almost 50% of the money that is coming in is coming from these very large donors. So it's a very large amount of money on a very small group. So if you think about that, you lose one person, you lose a lot of money in that regard. And so uh, and in addition, most large funders, whether they be foundations or large donors, they want to give where it's not solely reliant. They want where they give to be able to be sustainable beyond them, right? Like, and
Absolutely.
so in order to do that, you really need to have a diversified, wide support base to help weather those storms, as you put it. So I would suggest that people are being are tired right now. There's a lot of change in the air. There's a lot of uncertainty in the economy. There's a lot of vitriol, and I think that it makes it hard to feel as connected to our communities in those times. And I think that that's what we're kind of seeing here in an outgrowth in the Q1 report.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. this idea that you've heard about the Pareto principle, I imagine, right?
Yes.
Where, 80% of revenues is coming from that 20% of major donors, right? And we know that that ain't good, right? Especially like you say, if you have some attrition with a major donor and suddenly there goes, a significant percent of your revenue. One of the things that I'm encouraging nonprofits to do as a fundraising coach, in Bonterra's Jumpstart program, as a fundraising coach with my own practice via my company, Kia Croom Fundraising and Philanthropy. One of the strategies or tactics, rather, that I'm encouraging people of color led nonprofits to do, right, to consider utilizing, because it's kind of like a double whammy. If you are a people of color led organization and you don't have, a huge network of philanthropists or philanthropies that are given to your cause, but you've got a stable couple in your stable, right, in your stall. What I'm encouraging them to do is to really have a heart to heart with those donors and ask them what resources those donors might be able to kind of help unlock on their behalf, whether it's by design of having convenings, and I'm not suggesting that these have to be large, whether they're convenings in the virtual space, in person, just an opportunity to bring some other players to the table with the validation of that major donor that's, really invested and has put some skin in the game, to try to catalyze some of that. Um, what am I trying to say here? Networking, synergy, and invite other players to the table, right? I'm also encouraging people of color led organizations in particular to diversify in standing up their individual giving programs to fortify those, right? To try to get ahead of what could be some attrition with these majors, right? Particularly coming off of the racial reckoning, where we're seeing retrenchments and giving for things like racial justice, racial equity, um, those kinds of things. So those are a couple of tactics I'm encouraging organizations, particularly POC led ones, to try. Would you have any recommendations that you would share?
I'm a big fan of diversification for, along both points of view, communities, everything. If you only see the vantage point from your one place, you're not going to be able to get into the other different areas, or innovate, or learn how to fundraise, in different communities. So both white led and BIPOC led nonprofits, I would recommend, as you're sort of stating, is to diversify, um, leadership, diversify, activities, figure out different ways, because otherwise you're just going to continue doing what you know and what you're comfortable with, and therefore you won't push or grow, and your organization will suffer. And so, I think it's unfortunate, that there are, that we are in the situation we are, where there are, under underfunded organizations and communities out there. But the only ways that we can reach those is by diversifying our points of view, and hearing from different people, and bringing them into the decisions that are being made. So long way around to say diversification is always a good thing for anything, let alone fundraising.
Absolutely. Very important in this space. Okay, I got another doom and gloom.
Oh no.
Another doom and gloom data point. Just pack the punch. Just kind of pack the punch, gave me a blow when I was reading it. Decline in new to file donors is what I took away from this. It says in the header, doom and gloom, 2022 fundraising showed substantial weakness through Q4. Well, wait a minute. Did I mix that up? I might have mixed my notes up,
It's
y'all. I think I mixed my notes up.
it's in both. The trend
Okay.
persists. So yes, um, with the new donor crisis is a big crisis. Is that where you're headed, Kia?
Yeah. So what are we attributing that to? Because I mean, doesn't, it feels good to give, and folks giving to causes that electrify or energize them. I mean, why are we seeing, a decline in new donors?
Well, there are a lot of theories out there, and the bottom line is I don't know. But the theories I've heard are, one, there are a lot of different ways to give, and so there are ways that we're not capturing it anymore. Whether it be
Ah.
through Facebook or at the grocery store, or you know that is maybe one issue. There's also statistics that support that there's actually less engagement, less civic engagement from people. There's volunteering rates have been down. There's a panel
Hmm.
study out of the Lilly School that shows that as a household percentage, we're giving less, not only just to religion, but just in general giving less, like less than 50% of a household are giving. And so I think I also think the fabric of our communities have kind of decayed a little bit. As I was mentioning with all the vitriol, it does feel so like it's easy for us to kind of retract and go online and not be face to face and cast others off as others, not us, right? But when we're
Right.
face to face with people and we're community, we realize there's a human being on the other end, and you can't troll a human being in real life, right? Like I think I don't know. I think that there's some part of the fabric of society that is also declining, but I don't have a ton of evidence to support that, but it's my hunch that's part of the problem.
No, you raise a really good point, because one of the things that we saw during the pandemic was that loss of engagement, right? We saw corporations institute moratoriums on volunteer engagement out of necessity. You couldn't volunteer, you couldn't go, we were prohibited from doing things in person. So that pivot to online engagement. And I'm going to be honest with you. Um, I think even the best efforts to engage with donors and volunteers online, etc., there's grand as they might have been, right? And as effective as we might have felt like some of those efforts were, there was no replacement for that in-person engagement, right? For the ability to have an in-person site visit with that after school program or out of school time learning program. When we talk about being on the scene and actually seeing the magic happen, or that transformation happen that we can sometimes be so fortunate to observe in person, it got really difficult to do that in a virtual environment. I mean, it ain't easy. So I think it's something to be said. And I almost wonder, did people kind of get used to that, and kind of, might there be a little apathy? I'm a humanist and an optimist, and I'm always looking for the glimmer, the shining star, the north star, the glass is half full. But I'm wondering, is there some apathy now, as a result
Yeah.
as a result of foregoing that?
I 100% agree with you. I almost think of it as like attention, because even during the darkest days of COVID, where we were like all in our houses, wondering if we would even go outside again, right? But like during that time, people came out in droves for food banks. People came out in droves to help one another. Like, generosity didn't die. Like, it was actually
Mhm.
thriving. It's just that the attention to, we could all understand and relate. Like, oh yeah, of course, people need food. They just lost their job. They weren't able to do, like, there was all sorts, and so we gave. Or the social justice that occurred in 2020, that we see it right there in our faces, and there
Oh
was
yeah,
enormous outpouring of support. And but our attentions are very short, and um,
yeah,
and if you're when you're face to face with someone, your attention's on them, and you can. So I think there's something very much what you're saying. There's something that is part of the fabric of society, that like and that grabs our attention not through a screen, but through face to face human interaction. And I think you can hold someone's attention a lot longer in that way.
I think so too. So I'm wondering, is it incumbent upon organizations to really preserve that experience to the degree that they can, right? What opportunities exist for you to foster that kind of experience? And it's not to say, we're not into like poverty pandering
No,
and things of that nature, but just to have a compelling, what am I trying to say here, Ben? Compelling,
you're trying to connect, like, the impact,
meaningful.
right? Like,
Exactly.
to the donor, right? Which is, I think, the
Exactly.
ideal state for every nonprofit, right? But
Exactly.
yeah,
It might be incumbent upon us to be, I don't even know. I don't think it has anything to do with like innovation. I think it just boils down to, being old school and just being able to relate to another human being. You know what
yes,
I'm saying? Like, forget what AI is doing. Forget, all of the bells and whistles. It's not about what your CRM can do as much as it is about the ability to connect with someone and show the impact or the gravity of their giving, the impact and gravity, why it's so critical, what that benefit looks like to those beneficiaries, right? There's something to be said there.
I 100% agree, but I take a little umbrage with the AI because it's my space. But
I
I,
know, I know. I'm
even with the AI, um, my
feeling.
I will say that I think human-centered AI is the key there anyway, right? So, like,
Mhm.
you still need a human there to help facilitate that growth. But regardless, I agree 100%. Like, even passion, like, even if it's not like you're helping someone who's hungry, if you're doing advocacy, or if you're doing um,
Right.
you know an art museum, or the passion one has cannot be conveyed as well without being in person. So I think I'm in agreement with you.
No, thank you for that. And no, I listen. I share your affinity for the AI and AI tools. I'm really loving it. I'm really digging it and am a ardent proponent of the use, particularly in organizations that are lean, that are small but mighty, for you to get your hands around some AI tools that enable you to do more, to do so much more, right? To automate and simplify your work as a fundraiser. I say go for it. But no, I just was simply saying, there's no replacement for
Agreed.
that human person to person contact in this particular space. And that's something that I love about our space. And
Yes.
while everyone else is like, oh, AI is coming for jobs, we're all going to be unemployed. And it's like, hold your horses. Some of us have to have that esoteric, um, you know, associated with our work. And I really do think that that's inherent and true in this space. I got one question for you, one final question before we blow out of here. And I'm just going to stick to what you so generously shared on the website. So, doom and gloom, Continued consolidation in Q3 of 2022. Donors down 7.1%, but dollars up 4.7%. So we got a little doom, a little glimmer of hope. What can we take away from that?
Don't stop fundraising. Don't stop during, even uncertain times. And don't be ashamed to ask for money. If believe in what you're doing and spark that belief in those people that are going to support you. And it's not a bad thing. You should never feel bad about asking for someone to support a good cause, right? And so they can say no, and you shouldn't get angry if they say no, right? I mean, they may not have the capacity, but I would suggest that we've got to continue to fundraise. And if you're doing worse, like I was saying earlier on in our conversation, if you're doing worse than you were last year, then identifying where you're doing worse so that you can fix it and at least maintain, and then keep iteratively moving and down the field. So I think it's just a matter of keeping at it and figuring out what works for your organization, and then optimizing that.
Yes, now that is encouraging. That is very, very encouraging. I'm hearing you say, keep doing what you're doing, keep trucking along, keep on keeping on. But look at what results you're having, right? And right size it, make some adjustments, right? To the degree that you can, because I realize some organizations out here don't necessarily have resources to, hone in on, or, figure out their donor attrition rate, right? However, what is your revenue trends telling you? Are you faring more in individual giving, right? Are you seeing encouraging results with majors, right? Or are new to file folks finding you, right? And subscribing to your newsletter, right? I mean,
Yes.
like where are you having wins?
What gets measured gets moved.
Right. Where are you seeing wins, and where are you seeing not so encouraging results? Where can you make changes? I'll use myself as an example. I'll never forget a couple of years back, I'd invested in some paid social media ads, right? It was a flop.
It happens.
It was a flop. It was like, well, I know not to spend any more money with, this platform, because we weren't necessarily connecting and engaging with donor prospects, or even donors for that matter. Did it sound nice to have social incorporated into, our fundraising strategy, into our plan, into our tactics? Yeah, it sounded great, but it was a flop, and it showed that that wasn't somewhere that we wanted to concentrate or deploy resources. Our resources were better served in finding ways to drive traffic to our website and convert people by way of our newsletter, give them a red carpet, white glove experience, and welcome them on board and solicit them to become monthly donors, for instance, right? I mean, it was really a matter of being unabashed about testing some things, right?
Failures are learnings too. Yep.
Yeah, so I can tell you data set. Listen, I can tell you are all about it, and I love it. Well, I just want to thank you, Ben, for stopping by and unpacking a couple of data points. I'm going to share the link to the Fundraising Effectiveness Project and the recent findings in the show notes. Any parting words? I know we gave some doom and gloom. We gave a little glimmer of sunshine amid the cloud. Any parting words for the folks that are catching this on the playback?
I just want to say thank you, Kia. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and you know that I find advice from someone like Kia to help you and your nonprofit get better. But yes, no, keep at it, and don't underestimate the generosity in people.
Right. I believe that people are going to continue to be benevolent. I'm hopeful. I'm encouraged. I think that it's really in our fabric of humanity to, want to give and want to make conditions and want to make the world a better place. How do you highlight that shared humanity is the question with potential donors, donor prospects, friends. Like, how do you find that shared humanity and build that relationship? That's what I think it's about. I think folks are going to continue doing the good work of philanthropy.
Absolutely agree.
Well, just like that, folks, we're out of here. Until the next episode, see ya.
Yeah, Coach Kia. What up? Talking about that good money. What we talking about? We talking about philanthropy. Coach Kia Croom playing A, B, and a C. It's no fantasy, she can make it reality. Best in the field like a first string athlete. Fundraising and marketing, she get tactical. Tackle your issues with a playbook so your cash can grow. She can show you just what to do. Coach Kia Croom, when she touch down, it's a W. Coach Kia, put me in the game, Coach. Coach Kia, put me in the game, Coach. Coach Kia, put me in the game, Coach. You an all-star, show me how the game go.